Welcome to Module 10, our last module of this course. Today's meditation is actually at the end of the course, which is different from all the other modules, but I just wanted to let you know there will be a meditation at the end. Recap from last module: discover physical activities you enjoy, practice interoceptive awareness skills by listening to your body when determining which activity to do and which to avoid. Find a different motivation to being active, no longer focusing on weight, but instead your health, longevity, your emotional muscles, how it decreases stress, makes you feel good. And remember those quick bursts of benefits and those instant gratification that you can get from exercise as well that we talked about at the end of the last module. So far, you've made strides, and you've made strides in ditching diet culture, honoring your hunger, making peace with food, evaluating and challenging food police voices in your life, recognizing signs of hunger and fullness, rediscovering how satisfying food can be, and applying self-care practices and recognizing the benefits of self-care and handling emotions with kindness, connecting with your body in ways that strengthen your body respect. You're more attuned. You're more attuned to honoring your hunger, feeling your fullness, discovering the satisfaction factor, and movement, how different movements and activities make you feel. You've broken down attunement barriers. You're more attuned now because you now know what barriers are in the way of feeling your hunger, your fullness. Dieting, food rules, distractions when you're eating, waiting too long to eat. And of course, as we've said multiple times, a lack of self-care. As I read the last slide, you may be thinking, but wait, I still haven't actually accomplished all that. Maybe as I was reading the last few slides, you're thinking, but I really haven't made strides in any of that yet. I just want to remind you that intuitive eating is a journey, not a destination. If you've made it this far in the 10-module intuitive eating course, I'm willing to bet you've made great strides in all that has been listed in the previous slides. I'm also willing to bet you still have work to do. And guess what? That's okay. As a reminder, I want you to come at yourself with compassion and curiosity instead of judgment. The idea for this course is simply to give you a jump start on your journey, not to complete it. If at this point you are still struggling or need more personal help, now is the time to reach out to me if you'd like. Remember, with proof of purchase of this course, within the first 6 months of purchasing it, you will get a 10% discount per month on my personal intuitive eating and wellness coaching program. I want you to keep working on those self-care and milestone charts and discovery scales if you'd like. But now we're going to go ahead and start the last principle: honor your health with gentle nutrition. The key concepts for today's module include body food choice congruence, statements, play foods versus nutritious foods, are you ready to consider nutrition, authentic health, and dietary guidelines and key recommendations. Let's talk about body food choice congruence. This represents how foods feel in your body. How does eating a particular food or meal make you actually feel physically? Motivation is dependent on how the body feels and what the person desires. So now all of a sudden, thinking about what sounds good and what's going to satisfy you is no longer the only factor when trying to decide which food you're going to eat. But of course, it's still important. On page 227, read each of these scenarios, and I want you to notice the person is not being motivated by diet culture, but instead how they feel. Here are some more examples of body food choice congruence statements. I tend to get hungry right after I eat. Perhaps I'm not eating enough. Beans tend to give me gas. I should look into some Beano. I'm always hungry after work and raid the fridge when I get home. I should start packing after work snacks for my car ride home. Can you think of any other examples? These are all statements that you can add to your initial question of what sounds good. If beans sound good, great, but think about how they make you feel. If you know they tend to make your stomach a little bit upset, but you really want them and you know you love them, think about some Beano, just as an example. If you tend to get really hungry after you eat and you're thinking, what sounds good? Maybe also consider whatever sounds good in the moment. Maybe I should order a little bit more or pair it with something else. Maybe it's just not enough. So again, you're no longer just thinking about what sounds good, what textures, what flavors, but also what is going to be best for your body in this moment and make you feel the best. Back when you first started this self-guided course during module 2, we went over these statements on page 56, and you chose whether they were statements dictated by your mind, which often means diet culture was a part of them, or if they were more body, cue, or self-care statements. Back then, you may have had more mind statements dictated by and strongly influenced by media or diet culture, with a focus on weight loss or changing your body. But now, as we enter this last principle and this last module, my guess is that more of your food statements and decisions are based on body cues and self-care, which means you're already discovering body food congruence. Go ahead and pause and take a look at the statements back on page 56 again, just as a refresher. Some questions to ask yourself after eating a food. How does my body feel? And do I like this feeling? Were there any unwanted effects from eating this food? Did I feel energized or more lethargic after eating this food? Did I feel satiety, pleasantly full and satisfied? Did it keep me full longer or for very long at all? These are very similar to questions we might ask after we do a certain activity or exercise. How did it make me feel physically? Do I like this feeling? Do I feel more energized or more lethargic after this? These can be found in page 228 in your book if you want to mark this for future. Over the past modules, we've talked a little bit about changing the way we speak to yourself and your body. We've talked a lot about that, but we've mentioned maybe a couple times the importance of not calling foods good or bad, but just food, keeping a more neutral stance on food. Another way to look at this or talk about it with your kids or others is maybe to consider some foods as play foods. Using the term play foods instead of junk foods or bad foods gives it a more fun meaning and doesn't cast judgment on a food. It normalizes it. Who doesn't want some good play food in their life? Play food is the old junk food or bad food. Adding play food to your diet doesn't mean you aren't a healthy eater. Not allowing play food increases risk of eating disorders or disordered eating. Play food might be viewed as something you don't necessarily see on a food pyramid or My Plate, but it does add an element of pleasure and satisfaction to your life that now you know is so important. Right now, what motivates your food choices? Are you ready to consider nutrition in your food choices? I would like for you to pause and answer questions 1 through 2 on pages 230 to 231. This worksheet should give you a good insight to how far you've come on your intuitive eating journey. When you choose a highly nutritious food overall, is the choice made out of a belief that you have to make that choice or that it's a better choice? Or is it a combination of desire, satisfaction, knowing that it makes your body feel good, and adding some nutrition to your diet? Or have you not been able to find the joy in any nutritious foods yet? Are you still working towards adding nutritious foods to your diet? Or maybe you're somewhere in the middle. I want you to also evaluate answers to page 232 to really see if you're ready to move forward and consider nutrition in your food choices. Go ahead and pause and answer questions 1 through 5. All right, if you answered yes to questions 2 to 4, you're likely motivated to make food choices based on a combination of health and physical wellness and a desire for physical and emotional pleasure and satisfaction and well-being. In other words, you're ready for gentle nutrition guidance. If you did not answer yes, that's okay too. You can choose to move forward or not. It's really up to you and what makes you feel most comfortable. That brings me to our last voices segment. I'm excited to bring Elise Resch onto this course. Elise is a registered dietitian nutritionist who is one of the 2 co-founders of Intuitive Eating. She's also the author and co-author of a multitude of books, such as the Intuitive Eating Workbook you're using for this course, the Intuitive Eating Journal, Your Guided Journey for Nourishing a Healthy Relationship with Food, and the Intuitive Eating Card Deck, 50 bite-sized ways to make peace with food. I had the pleasure of interviewing Elise for the podcast I co-host called, at the time, Dietitian's Dish, but now Nutrition Unmeasured. This is just a short clip where she gives an overview of exactly what is meant by gentle nutrition. Take a listen. Can you briefly describe what gentle nutrition is?
Well, first of all, I want to say that in all the books on intuitive eating, and there are a number of them out now, I mean, the ones that either Evelyn wrote or I wrote or we wrote together, gentle nutrition is always the last chapter. It's extremely important that that be out of people's minds until they go through the process of making peace with food and looking at the way they talk to themselves about food and what people say to them about food, and starting to tune into the satisfaction and which comes with eating with a nice appetite and stopping with comfortable fullness, and learning how to respect the body, and really starting to understand the thoughts that lead us to some of the emotions that we have that connect with food. So that's the first thing I want to say. So anybody who is starting an intuitive eating process, you need to forget about gentle nutrition in the beginning. So when you finally go through the whole process and you're really healing from diet culture and very attuned to your own inner wisdom, that's the point where you start to really look at how you feel. Wow, a client will say to me, I'm just, I haven't eaten a piece of fruit or eaten a vegetable in so long because now I get to eat all these other things that I didn't get to eat. But you know what? I don't feel very well. My GI tract isn't working very well. So that opens the door to a conversation with me as the dietitian to help the person understand how certain foods might help their GI tract. Other people might say, well, I've been eating a pastry for breakfast every day because I can. And you know what? My blood sugar just crashes and all I want to do is go to sleep an hour later. Help me, Elise. And that's when I can explain that if you have, a more balanced breakfast, if you have some protein and some fat and some carbohydrates and maybe some fiber, that's going to keep your blood sugar fairly even until you get some gentle hunger coming in a few hours later. So gentle nutrition is really connected to how your body feels and how to choose foods for your optimal, certainly satisfaction, but for your optimal well-being in terms of feeling good. And it's so interesting. If a lot of intuitive eating, or I would say one of the foundations of intuitive eating, is based on toddler studies, where our toddlers who are given a wide array of foods, all kinds of different foods, when you let them eat whatever they want to eat, at the end of a week, they get all the nutrition that they need, as long as they're not being pushed to eat certain foods or told not to eat other foods. And so we know that that wisdom is within us. I know it very, profoundly, the wisdom of how do I feel when I eat in a certain way? How do I feel if I don't eat for a long period of time? How do I feel if I'm eating without an appetite? What kinds of foods sustain me? What kinds of foods make me feel good? And what kinds of foods don't feel good in my body? So that's really what gentle nutrition is. And that's how it correlates with all of the intuitive eating signals. So it's not about what you should eat. It's not about anything like that. It's about teaching people, if they want to learn, what the different types of foods are and how they affect their body. So I want to say one more thing about this. There's such a misconception out in the world that what we eat and how we move is the main determinant of health. People just think that all the time. Well, you have to eat a certain way, and you have to get the right balance, and you have to get the right amount of vitamins and minerals, and you yada yada yada, and you have to exercise these many times a week, and that will make you healthy. But if you look at research, you will actually find that only 10 to 20%, depending on the study you look at, of your health is determined by how you eat and how you move your body. And the other 80 to 90% of what determines your health it's called social determinants of health. So that includes access to food, access to enough food, access to a variety of foods, access to medical care, access to education, access to secure housing, access to a social, group that you can trust, and how much are you living in your life with oppression or many different differences that one lives with? Because all of these other factors, and there are more, they are the ones that determine your stress levels. Because if you don't have secure housing, you don't have secure food, you can't get to a doctor, you don't have a medical plan, you don't have access to all the things that we need to make us happy in life, you're stressed out. And that stress is the biggest determinant of health, because if you're walking around with chronic stress, your cortisol levels are sky high, which is implicated in inflammation and a number of diseases.
All right. Hopefully you enjoyed that little clip from Elise. You can listen to that entire episode if you visit the episode 106 on my Nutrition Unmeasured podcast, which I've also linked in that resources page. Let's talk about authentic health. Intuitive eating, the dynamic integration. I want to explain what you're looking at here. Before starting this journey, you may have pictured authentic health as one thing, following a prescribed list of rules that prevents you from eating certain foods and forced you to make dietary choices based on external factors such as labels, the time on the clock, points, the number on the scale. Now, as you've started your lifelong journey of intuitive eating, you've learned to listen to and trust your body to guide you in making the best choices for you personally. You've started to understand that healthy doesn't mean eating perfect, and that play foods play an important role in everyone's diet. You've begun to master inner attunement, or listening to your body, and are now ready to learn about those external health values, the other half of authentic health, knowing that you will not latch on to these recommendations and turn them into strict rules or a diet. You now know that dietary recommendations are just that. Recommendations, guidance, guidelines. They're meant to help guide you to make better food choices, but not dictate your food. That is up to you. Let's talk about dietary guidelines. Before going into specifics, keep this in mind. Focus on dietary patterns, not specific individual nutrients. The thing is, our body looks at averages. In other words, you don't need to focus on making sure that you're getting enough of a specific nutrient all the time. Generally speaking, just like Elise said, happens with kids. If you watch what your kids eat and think that they are not getting enough nutrition, their diet balances out at the end of the week, at the end of the month, and so does ours. Our body looks at averages. And just some general guidelines for you based on the dietary guidelines. If you can, aim to get more fruits and vegetables. Variety is key. If you tell me, or if you're thinking to yourself, I don't like fruits and vegetables, my guess is there's at least some that you like. I used to work with patients back in the day at an outpatient clinic, and they would tell me all the time, Gina, I hate fruits and vegetables. But then as we'd start to talk, I realized, oh, they like canned corn or canned green beans, or they like strawberries. There's got to be at least some that you like. So start eating those. Fruits and vegetables work well as part of a snack. I like to recommend, if you don't want to include them in a meal, add them as a snack if you can. Aim to get more whole grains: brown rice, quinoa, whole wheat bread, oatmeal, wild rice, bran cereal. What's your favorite? Aim to get more fish: Twice a week is generally the goal. More mild fish, such as cod or tilapia, are great too. Find your preferred method of cooking. For me, it's grilled. I love my fish grilled. Look for simple recipes. And if you're a vegetarian, you can choose a plant-based EPA or DHA supplement to get that good omega-3, or add some flax, walnuts, or chia to your diet regularly. Aim to get more beans: black, kidney, chickpea, white, pinto. Add them wherever you can. Salads, baked potatoes, soups, stews, side dishes, or as I like to do sometimes, eat it out of the can. I love beans. Beans are loaded with nutrients, protein, and fiber. Notice those last few slides. I really wanted to get the word more out there. I don't like telling people to take away from their diet. There are obviously certain conditions when you need to limit certain ingredients and nutrients, but generally speaking, I want to tell people to add more to their diet, get more of these different foods. And what about portion sizes? So first and foremost, you want to nourish your body with enough calories and fluids to sustain yourself and keep you energized. Next, focus on what you're putting in your mouth and how it makes you feel and whether or not you enjoy the food. That's important. The dietary guidelines like to discuss foods to reduce, but it's my belief that if you focus more on foods to add, you don't need to be concerned with reducing a bunch of foods. So again, what about portion sizes? After going through these modules, what do you think I recommend when it comes to portion sizes? I used to get out my measuring cups and deck of cards or ping pong balls to show people the correct portion size. But now I firmly believe if you continue to work towards listening to and trusting your body, you'll find the portion size that is correct for you. This will likely change from meal to meal, day to day, week to week, even possibly year to year. What if you don't get all the foods you need, or you have a chronic disease? Of course, there may be a time when you have to think very closely about specifics, such as carbohydrates when you have diabetes, or saturated fat when you have high cholesterol. But working with an intuitive eating and non-diet, non-restrictive dietitian or healthcare provider, and continuing your intuitive eating journey, you can find ways to manage those chronic diseases without the E word, elimination, or the R word, restriction. On the other end of the spectrum, if you find you aren't getting enough fiber or calcium or vitamin D, be mindful about where you can include more of those in your diet. Sometimes labs can show you this, for example, with vitamin D or iron. Other times you can figure it out on your own. For example, I think as Elise was saying in her story, if you find you aren't as regular in the bathroom as you used to be, chances are you could use more water and fiber. You know your body best. It's okay to every once in a while stop and evaluate your diet to see if, generally speaking, you're getting 5 to 8 servings of fruits and vegetables, some whole grains daily, a couple servings of dairy or dairy alternatives, and a few good sources of protein in your diet. If you're looking for examples of the different food groups, the USDA has some great resources, which I'll link in the resources page. We have a MyPlate in America, which is nice and all, but this one from the Canadian Dietary Guidelines wins me over every time. It's simple and straightforward and even includes examples. Aim for more fruits and vegetables. Choose whole grain as much as possible over refined grain. But also note that refined grain are also full of nutrients because usually they're fortified, right? Get some protein at most meals. Let's go over the different food group options in this picture. Fruits and vegetables, which contain mainly carbohydrates. What are they and what do they have here? They've got apples, blueberries, carrots, broccoli, peppers, spinach, peaches, peas, and notice the different variety of colors. Meats, poultry, fish, eggs, and legumes over here, which mainly contains protein and fat. And then we've got the grains down here, such as bread, pasta, rice, quinoa, and these contain mainly carbohydrates, also sometimes some protein and sometimes some fat, but also lots of fiber. as well as your fruits and vegetables. Some foods, such as beans, fall into two categories. They could be considered a vegetable or a protein. Aim for 3 food groups in a meal and aim for 2 food groups in a snack. Again, this is just a gentle guideline. It all circles back to this. This is from page 61 in the workbook, Make Peace with Food. Do I really like the taste of this food? Do I like how this food feels in my body? Would I choose to feel this way again after eating this meal or snack? Would I choose to eat in this manner again? Now that you've begun to make peace and you're, further into your intuitive eating journey, you have room for some of these questions. All right. I just want to make note of that podcast. If you want to listen to the rest of it, you absolutely can with Elise. But I also put a link to multiple episodes of our Dietitian's Dish podcast, Nicole and I. Nicole Morrissey, you heard way back in module 1. And we did several episodes, Healthier in a Hurry. Tons of recipes in that episode. So if you're looking for some quick, more balanced recipe ideas and meal ideas, go ahead and check that out. Now it's time for the post assessment. Go ahead and pause until you're ready and fill out pages 8 through 9 again and see where you're at now with those intuitive eating factors compared to when you first began. Now I want you to open that letter you wrote to yourself at the beginning of this self-study course. Have you achieved what you wanted? And if you decided to write one back in module 3, get out your pro-con list for intuitive eating. Have you added to it since then? Have your pros started to outweigh your cons? Can you add more pros to it now? Or maybe delete some cons? There's no specific further learning, just a reminder to get out that resources page so you can see a comprehensive list of all of the resources that I've gone over in the past 10 modules. Unlike dieting, where I might tell you, congrats, you've reached your goal. Now, Godspeed. I am telling you, you've made it to the end of this intuitive eating course, but your journey has just begun. I'm hoping by now you've started on a path to food freedom and body respect, and you're looking forward to growing your intuitive eating muscles even more, and even telling your friends and family about all you've discovered about yourself. As you end this course, please remember the list of resources I provided for you. Use those resources as you continue this journey, and know that I'm always here for you for extra support. And that brings us to our last meditation. Today's meditation and affirmation really wraps up all that you've worked on over the past 10 modules. It combines the importance of satisfaction, attunement to fullness and hunger, self-compassion, gratitude, and now balanced nutrition. Remember, the goal of intuitive eating is not to be perfect, not to stay on track, but to be kind to yourself, give yourself permission, and always remain curious.
Find a comfortable seat that you can meditate in for the next 2 minutes. Ground down through your sits bones. Take a nice deep breath in through the nose. And exhale, release out the mouth, letting go of any tension. This meditation is around satisfaction and gentle nutrition. As I say these affirmations, feel free to repeat them out loud or silently to yourself. I feel amazing when I eat nutritious food. When I nourish my body, I feed my soul. I feel satisfied and content when I am full, but not overly full. I tune into my body and feel my fullness. Every cell in my body is radiant when I feed it foods that are satisfying and nourishing. I send love to my food and my body. I am grateful for all my body does for me. Pause for a moment and just notice what comes up for you as you repeat these affirmations. I invite you to stay here for a few more breaths, bringing this feeling into your heart center, giving yourself some love and gratitude in this moment. And as you're ready, draw yourself back into the space. Blink your eyes open. Take a nice deep breath in. And exhale, let it go.
Thank you for spending the last 10 modules with me and trusting me as your coach during this time. As you end this course, just a reminder, be kind to yourself, be curious and not judgmental, focus on self-care, and give yourself permission to put yourself first. That's all I have for you now, but you know how to get in touch with me. Good luck to you on your journey, and thank you again.